Hello and welcome to Silent Creativa. This is part 2 of the doll repaint video I posted last week, and today I will focus mainly on the dress. To get the basic pattern for the corset, I wrapped her in kitchen film and then covered her in tape by using small sections of it, just to make it lay more flat and have all of the details that I need. From this, it was just drawing in the lines and deciding where everything should be, how high the corset should be, how low it will be, and yeah, drawing in the basic shape and lines, and then getting it off of the doll and cutting out all the little pieces. After I had all the little pieces, I traced them onto paper, and that was it for the pattern for the corset. Though I wasn't quite sure where this dress will go at this point, I decided to make a off-shoulder top that is a little bit more loose. To connect the arm and the body, I just marked a line at an angle where I want this to be later. Though I wanted her sleeve not to be too wide, I just measured her arm and then gave it a little bit more space and drew this down as a square too. Lastly, I traced the angle from the top onto the sleeves, and then I was finished with the pattern for the top. Yeah, the skirt was quite a thing on its own. The first attempt I made for the pattern failed miserably, so I had to do it again, but used the fail version as a reference for the waist. Though my attempt to not make a princess already failed, I decided to go a little bit bigger on this. Though the front of the dress should end nearly at the knees, I measured this and traced that on the paper. And at the side, I would like to have it already on the floor. And then for the back, I would like to have a train. So I just eyeballed the rest and made something that was nearly like a half circle or more like an egg shape. Yeah, and that was the pattern for the skirt. For the second layer of the skirt, I just measured 1 centimeter around it and made it a little bit shorter. Though this doll was quite a bit of experimentations, I decided to give the dress a color on my own. And I had laying around some fabric colors, so why don't experiment with something new? So I take a piece of chiffon, made it quite wet, and then brushed the color on top of it to get a kind of a gradient from black to green. Yeah, and this piece was just the first try because I wasn't quite sure how it will go. And while I was making this, I thought, oh, maybe something galaxy themed would be nice too. And yeah, so I made two test pieces and let them dry. And after this, I decided which one I will take for the doll. After they were dried, I washed them and ironed them flat. And then it was time to take a look how they will suit the doll. And yeah, I wasn't quite sure about the galaxy themed piece because of the red of her hair. And yeah, lastly, I decided for the green and black thing, but made it a little bit more intense. Then it was just tracing all the pattern pieces onto the fabric. And because I wanted the lines to be visible after coloring everything, I made it with a ball pen, which I wouldn't do normally. Yeah, and after I cutted everything out, I started with the paint job, which took quite a while. It was more work than I thought it would be, and a really huge mess. So if you would like to do something like that, prepare you for a big mess. To make a corset in this scale was quite challenging for me because I hate sewing by hand. I decided to make this on the sewing machine too, and yeah, that went okay, but it could have been a little bit more precise. But anyway, it works, and yeah, I'm okay with it. So I sew everything together, and yeah, I did most of the part off camera because with the sewing machine in front and the camera, it was quite a bit difficult. I stitched on some pearls later, but I did this off camera because, yeah, that was quite tricky because I don't had the right needle for stitching pearls, and yeah. So I did this off camera, and you will see the final thing later when I will dress up the doll. After the front and the back were all stitched up, I pinned them front on front and sewed them together too. when all of the pieces for the main dress were dry and washed and ironed, I cut out the edges again, and to secure them from fraying, I took a candle and burned them a little bit. If you want to do something like that, be very careful with it. It can ruin your fabric, and to anyone who is not old enough to play with fire, please don't do this. Ask your parents or something like that, because it can destroy everything, all of the work you had to this point, and yeah, you have to be quite careful with it. Anyway, from this part it was just stitching everything together again. While I was doing the hem on the top, I took a red thread and pinned it into the hem, so I could easily ruffle everything together later. Make sure while you are sewing that you don't sew the thread in. It has to be loose. to gather the waist part later, I added a red thread again and stitched it into the seam allowance by using a zigzag stitch. After all of this was finished, and the dress went quite well, I went totally crazy with rhinestones. I bought some that you can iron on, and yeah, first thing, make sure that you iron them according to package instruction, and I had to iron them for 30 seconds because, yeah, I didn't do that quite well for the first parts and they came off again and I had to do everything again. And yeah, at least it was nearly 2 days of just arranging rhinestones and iron them on the dress. To everyone who does things like that in a normal human size, oh my gosh, you have to be so patient. For her boots, I decided to leave them as they were because I thought they are quite cute and I liked the detail with the wing on the top. I mixed some black paint with some Mod Podge, yeah, and then coated the boots nearly 3 times, 3 to 4 times, I think. I just recorded the first step because, yeah, it's always the same. You just brush your mixture over it. And after everything was dry, I just painted on the details like the seams and the wings in silver. And yeah, that was quite it with the boots. I was in a quite wintry mood at this point. I don't know exactly why, but I decided to give her a cape anyway. And yeah, here I just show you how I made the basic circle out of fabric. Because it's a little bit big on camera, I thought I showed in this little piece of paper. But I did nearly the same steps on the fabric that I did in the first place. For a little bit more of a detail, I decided to give it a hem out of fur, and that was just taking the false fur I had laying around and adding it to the hem. Great. Yeah, makes totally sense. And finally, it was time to get everything onto the doll. Yeah. I put the boots on first, then the dress, and gathered everything with the ribbons that I inserted and just knotted them together and cut them off. Because you won't see them anyways. The most tricky part was to get the corset on, because I thought I stitch it together first and leave a little bit space and then do the lacing. Yeah, but the lacing was a little bit too tight, so I had to cut it off again and stitch it again on the doll. So you see just the part where I am stitching everything together and pulling the threads together and make it tight. And after 2 weeks of being separated, her head was joined again to the body. And finally, after all this work, I was finished, and yeah, I could take some photos with her. And yeah, the last photo is her and some of her companions that she has to live with now. So I hope you enjoyed the video and the progress and the process, and yeah, thank you for watching and have a nice day. Bye.